Tech Addicts Episode 8, Slopes. Special episode this week with a special guest, Daniel Ibbertson from Slopes Game Room, in to have a chat with us about his retro gaming videos, the Amstrad mascot, Roland, his Kickstarter videos, and how easy it is to be scammed. Hello and welcome to the Tech Addicts podcast. I'm your host Gareth, and this week I'm joined by, as usual, Mr. Ted Salmon. Ted, how are you?
Hello. Okay, thank you. Hello. From a very wet and windy North Wales.
Ah, right, you're under this yellow weather warning that I'm under too?
Just about, yeah, we're on the edge of it here.
Ah, right, okay. And those who are more astute may have noticed from the show title that we do actually have a special guest with us this week, and that is Mr. Daniel Ibbertson from Slopes Game Room on YouTube. Daniel, are you there?
Well, thank you. Hello. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. I've been a big fan of your YouTube channel for a long time, so it's really nice to be able to actually chat to you now and have a chin wag about your content.
Yeah, definitely.
So
I love talking about myself, so yeah, let's do this.
Excellent. It's the one thing that people are good at doing, I think. But
yeah.
Terrific. So you actually, I didn't realize until this morning, whenever I saw a tweet from you saying that you were in Disneyland. You've got a couple of YouTube channels, don't you?
Yes, I do. I did have a second channel that was more just like random gaming stuff that I didn't know what to do with, but it just sat there dead for so long. And sometimes I did things, sometimes I did never know what to do with it. So now it's a vlog channel, a family vlog channel. But that's very much, I mean, there's no monetary thing attached to it. There's no like, I've got to try and find things for the analytics, what's hot right now, all that sort of stuff. I haven't got to worry about anything of that. It's just a fun thing that I do, primarily because my kids, my children, I did a little video for them from when we went to Florida a few years ago, and it was just for the family, and they were so in love with it. And they were like, "Oh my god, I remember that." There was things that they weren't remembering until they were seeing the video of it, because they were quite a lot younger then. And they're always asking to be a part of my channel, and I'm like, you can't be a part of my main channel. You really can't. This way, it's a cool family fun thing to do, and hopefully other people like it too. That's all that is. It's just a fun thing to do.
That's a lovely memory as well. As they grow older, and things, whenever they're 50 and sitting looking back and reflecting on their lives, they'll have video content.
Yeah.
Rather than millions of messy videos stuck in a Google Drive somewhere, as my son's going to look.
And that's the thing. Yeah, when you get those like memories pop up on Facebook, that's now a channel for me,
I was Disneyland Paris, but is it good at all? Yeah,
it's good. I mean, we're Disney obsessed. It's my little hobby away from like all of the gaming and YouTube and Kickstarter stuff. I love going to theme parks and all that sort of stuff. So we do Disney a lot. We're right down in the bottom of the UK, right in the corner next to Dover. So for us, we can drive to Disneyland Paris almost quicker than we can drive to like Alton Towers, and that's in the same country.
Yeah.
So we go there a lot.
Oh, right, okay, so it's easy enough. But there was a wee bit of a segue there in that your other main channel, which is the reason why I know you, is dedicated towards kind of retro gaming, but also Kickstarter and scammy stuff too, as well. You're bridging on that.
Well, I mean, I've always been into the history of gaming. Always been fascinated with the history of gaming. I was watching all of those obvious channels that everyone knows about, your Angry Video Game Nerds, your Metal Jesuses, and all that sort of stuff for the longest time. And I mean, in the real world, I've got friends that are into gaming a little bit. Might buy the new GTA or Call of Duty when it comes out, but that's pretty much as far as it goes. And I was just always boring them like senseless. Like, did you hear about the ET carts in the desert? Did you know about this? Did you know about that? And it's just not interesting to them. So I went online and I found a community that would be interested to talk about that sort of stuff by making a channel talking about the history of video games. As you said, that's half of the channel, and the other half is looking at scammers, trying to find scammers on on various crowdfunding websites.
Awesome. That's pretty cool stuff. I know Ted's into his retro stuff a good bit. He likes his old Marios and his Game Boys. I think. Did you dig into his channel, Ted? Were you able to find stuff?
Last night I watched the complete history of Super Mario Bros.
Oh right, yeah, the DS games, yeah,
and the overemphasis on the word new.
yeah.
But that was
horrendous. That was a real branding.
That was a real good retro visit for me, though. Just to give you the background, Daniel, I'm not a huge gamer, but what gaming I have done has all been Nintendo, really, and
cool.
It's all kind of I've got my kind of 3DS XL here and my
nice.
And my Switch Lite and other various cart based stuff. So I'll probably kind of take a bit of a back seat on this one, but because I know that Gareth has got much more of a grasp on the whole gaming thing.
Well, no, I mean, I grew up on Sega, screw Nintendo. I don't want to say the N-word ever, but I mean, that was back in the 90s, and nowadays, obviously, I don't really have a Sega to go to anymore, console-wise, but, like, the biggest collection I own, even on the retros, even if you count my retro collections, is my Nintendo Switch collection. I love Nintendo, especially, like, I would say 9 out of 10 first-party Nintendo titles are exceptional, like truly exceptional games.
They really are.
I'm a big fan of modern Nintendo as well.
They're very, very well polished, aren't they? And they've clearly spent a lot of time. You can argue that they're kind of childish and aimed at a younger audience, but actually they're so fantastic. What I liked about when we had the SNES or the SNES on the TV, and what I liked about it was the learning curve. The learning curve was just perfect as you gained skills and you were led through the game level by level. You just learned stuff at a perfect pace, and I think that was just down to the really, really clever writing of the software, that they got you hooked by making sure that you stuck around and tried to finish it.
Oh, absolutely, yeah, they're great games.
Yeah. And you have a mini SNES, don't you, as well, Ted, somewhere?
I do, yeah. It's I played Super Mario World on that a while back. Of course, the graphics, when you go back to these games, you think, the graphics are just appalling, which is where the Switch comes in, because suddenly it all is much more polished on that.
Yeah.
I love the old school graphics. I've got to say, the pixelation on the SNES and earlier. See, for me, give me more of that. That's what I'm all about.
Well, on the topic,
have you got an Evercade? We were talking about Evercades recently.
Yeah, I've got an Evercade and the Evercade Versus, but not the more recent Evercade Versus. So there's three Evercades, if I'm not mistaken. I've got the first two. I haven't got the third one. I've got maybe 25, 30 carts for it, but I'm quite behind now. And when I look, I'm like, I would like to continue getting them. I'm like, whoa, even at 15 quid a pop, I've got to get like another 30, 40 odd carts now, and that's not going to be too cheap.
Yeah, they've just announced Tomb Raider as well, which is very, very
they
tempting.
have. Yeah. So
you mentioned your retrospective videos on Mario as well. That is actually how I first came to you. Was I saw your story of Roland, which is
the first video I ever did.
The mascot from Amstrad, in a time whenever mascots were not really a done thing. Spectrum and Commodore didn't have them, I don't think. Or I suppose you could argue Horus maybe for Spectrum.
Yeah.
And Commodore would just be like a brown pixel or something like that, maybe.
I don't know what you would even have with the Commodore 64. Gianna Sisters? I'm not sure.
Oh, that's possible. Yeah, that's a good one. But
maybe
you went and looked at all of the Roland games, and a number of them, even rewatching that video quite recently, still a number of them are new to me that I haven't gone back and visited, because most of them are terrible, and it's ridiculous how they just summarized Roland as this character from like a Doctor Who type character to a flea to a block, and thought
that's it for people out there that don't know the history of Roland. And this was like a video that I had in my head for the longest time. I'm going to make a channel one day, because everyone's talking about terrible games from the States, like your Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde and your Top Guns and whatever else. I was like, the UK have some bad games, and you know that was the thing on YouTube. You got to talk about bad games, and you got to over exaggerate how bad they are, and scream at the camera. And I'm like, well, you know, I'm going to look at a series of games that I grew up with that no one seems to talk about, called the Roland games. And Roland was basically was named after Roland Perry, the guy who helped make the Amstrad CPC 464s in Alan Sugar's console, the Alan Michael Sugar Trading. That's what Amstrad stands for. And it wasn't very well thought out, the character. In actual fact, it wasn't thought out at all. Besides the fact that he had a name called Roland, every character looked different in every game because different people made the game. So, like you say, in one game he's a pirate, in another game he's a flea, in another game he's just a block-looking thing. Like, there was no consistency at all except for the name, and I just found that fascinating.
Yeah, it's crazy, but there were some legitimately good games, as you identified in the video, in that the one where he's a flea is pretty good, and
Bugaboo the Flea copy, that is. That's there's Flea, which is actually a game. There's an indie game for the Dreamcast recently called Flea, which is essentially that, but better. Bugaboo the Flea, I think, was the earliest version of that sort of game. Yeah. That was a good game. Roland on the Ropes was kind of an Indiana Jones, or at least that's how I thought about it in my head. If you pick it up nowadays and you've never played it before, you're probably going to think this is a bit rubbish. But 1984, I don't know how old I've been. I would have been 1 then. I definitely weren't playing games then. Like 86, 7 when I was playing those games. That's what I had, and that was awesome to me.
Yeah. And then you took what you learned from making that video and made the the original Bad Boys, and then the complete history of Streets of Rage.
Yeah. I mean, Streets of Rage was the game that was like, wow, gaming can't get this good. Like, this is the best gaming we'll ever get. You know what I mean? Like 1990. How old I've been? 1991, I think, maybe 1992. When I first played that and the original Sonic the Hedgehog. I was a mummy's boy, and my mum, you know, when you're younger, you play the console your parents bought for you, and your life is set to support that one thing. You know? And the Amstrad was that home computer for me, and I remember playing on an NES. Like I literally remember going to this guy's house and seeing Mario, the first Mario on the NES, and thinking, this ain't as good as what I have on my Amstrad, which is ridiculous to say nowadays. Obviously it was, but I was such a mummy's boy, nothing was going to be touching my Amstrad. I was so in love with it. And but then when I played Sonic the Hedgehog 1 and Streets of Rage, I was like, my God, I can't keep up this charade any longer. Like, this is the greatest thing I've ever played in my life. I was just so blown away, and then that Christmas I got the games, and as I said earlier, Sega through and through, Sega to the bitter end.
It made me think there. Whenever you say that you know, this was the best gaming could ever be, I suddenly had a flashback to a friend of mine with his Commodore Amiga showing me Epic, and on the way into his bedroom to show it to me, he said he used a term that I've never forgotten, and it becomes, you know, so important today. Is he said the graphics were photorealistic, and I'd never heard that before. And I liked it, but to apply that to Epic, which is a game with 3D polygons, really just there's something wrong with our eyes back then. Ted, do you have any memories of what you thought was just, you know, gaming is here, you know, something that is so incredible to your eyes that you've never seen anything like it before?
Not really, and to some degree, I still think that's a bit of a missed thing. Now, maybe I've kind of been looking at the wrong recent games, but when I see people on video reviews reviewing games, and I see the gameplay, I think to myself, surely in today's world, in 2024, 25. This should look real, and to me it doesn't. It looks like a computer animation. Now, maybe I'm just looking at the wrong games and the wrong reviews and what have you, and that there is stuff out there that is photorealistic and you actually believe you're looking at human beings, but it always just seems to be a bit janky still to me.
I do know what you mean, and it does depend what you look at. There's more like tech demo-y type games. I know there was one I saw recently, and I don't remember the names of these at all, but there was essentially like a Revolt, new version of Revolt, which is like a remote control car game, and it looked like to the point where I looked at the comments. Oh my god, this is actually a game. I thought this was footage of someone putting like a GoPro on a little go-kart thing and spit, and it was so well done. I'm like, wow, that actually looks real.
Mm-hmm.
But
I think it's just called Volt.
I think is that what it is? Yeah. So there's a few things like that. But what I will say is, obviously Gran Turismo car games have they've always looked really, really good, I think.
Mm-hmm.
But when I say that, I remember specifically another time that I thought that was when I played Castle of Illusion on the original Mega Drive, or Genesis for American listeners. That was what you're actually playing as Mickey Mouse going through like a cartoon world. I'm like, my god, this is so good. I feel like I'm playing a real cartoon here. But now if you compare that to something like Cuphead, I genuinely don't know if Cuphead can. And I know that's ridiculous to say because you say every generation gaming can't look better than this, gaming can't look better than this, but in the sense of playing a cartoon, I don't know if Cuphead can look better. It looks exactly the way it's supposed to look. It looks like I'm playing a 1940s cartoon or whatever. And I think that I don't think gaming can look better in that arena. You know what I mean? Like you get yourself like a hardcore first-person shooter, like a new Call of Duty or Uncharted. Wow, this looks great, but at the same time, it still looks like a video game. Mm-hmm. I understand where that can look better. If that's what you're going for, but there you go. Ramble over.
Well, I think there's a new first-person shooter coming out. It's like a door kickers type thing. I can't remember what it's actually called, but it looks like someone's running around with a GoPro on their head. But I think it's more of a rail shooter, but I can't remember what it's called.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I may have seen footage of that. I think someone on Twitter or X shared something of that.
Yeah, but it's one of those things that it's just gonna. The Simpsons, I think, is always a great example. Whenever you see some of the Simpsons games, like Simpsons Hit and Run, and what was the other game around that time? The Grand Theft Auto
Road
style
Rage.
One. Or maybe it was Hit and Run was a Grand Theft Auto.
No, it's Road Rage. Hit and Run and Road Rage, they're the two, weren't they?
But they really looked like the cartoons, and it looked like they were, because they were a 3D world, they were a wee bit different, but they kind of captured all the artistic styles that they were running in the TV show. But then that's not hard, because The Simpsons is a lot less detail compared to the old Mickey Mouse cartoons as well. So, what's your loadout? What kind of hardware do you have around you? Do you have new consoles and old consoles? Do you have arcade machines? Do you have a massive gaming collection?
I don't have any arcade machines. That's next on the bucket list to get. In my game room, I do. Well, I said I don't have an arcade machine. I have like a homemade DDR dance machine, with the 4 arrows on the floor. I've got one of those. Wow. That was always a dream of mine to get one of them, and I've got one now. And now I've got one. I hardly use it, but I really should use it more. But no, right next to me, I'm looking next to me, and I've got an original Xbox, Saturn, PlayStation 4, GameCube. What's down there? PS3, Xbox 360. I've got a couple of them actually there. My original Mega Drive from when I was a kid, Wii U. But then more modern consoles. I haven't got the latest Xbox. I've got one generation behind with Xbox. I don't see the point in getting one. There's no exclusive games that make me want to get one. Mm-hmm. But I've got several Nintendo Switches dotted around the house, whether it's mine or the kids. I've got PlayStation 5. I've got, like I say, a stupidly big Nintendo Switch collection. And when I'm playing modern games, I tend to use either emulation if it's a very quick thing that I need to get a couple of seconds footage of. But if it's like an in-depth Mega Drive or Super Nintendo game, I do have the Mega SG and the Super NT right in front of me. And my Mega SG also has a Mega SD in it as well. For people who don't know what they are, they're essentially FPGA powered new versions of a Mega Drive and a Super Nintendo. And what that basically means is the chips inside replicate the hardware rather than an emulation which replicates the software. I think that's an easy way of explaining it. And it's essentially a perfect Mega Drive or Super Nintendo, but has HDMI out and loads of other options, so you can get the absolute best crystal clean audio and visuals that you possibly can. They're my go-to when I'm doing my retro stuff.
So like a Mister type
yeah, basically the same thing, but just dedicated to that one system. Or it can play a few others like Master System and whatever else and Game Gear, but yeah.
Wow, right, okay. And then do you have an extensive library, or do you not have cartridges and things like that, or?
My library of retro games has actually shot right down over the last few years. It's one of those things. Go back to my second channel. I like to take the family to different theme parks and different holidays around the world and anything I can. And I look on my shelf and I'm like, that game is worth £200-300, and I've just had to run my finger across it to get rid of that big thick layer of dust because it just doesn't get taken off the shelf whatsoever. I've got a quite modest Mega Drive collection, maybe 70-80 Japanese games. And that's probably my best retro collection that I have. I've sold most of everything else because most of the time I would either emulate it or, for instance, with my Mega Drive, I've got a Mega SD flash cart in it, which has every single game, every single region for everything from the Master System SG-1000 all the way up to the Mega CD and 32X. So I've got that entire stretch of games to play perfectly, and they're all on the SD card on that Mega Drive, and they would play absolutely exactly the same as if I pulled the cartridge off the shelf.
Brilliant.
So it's one of those, you get to a certain age, it's like, do I need that game that's worth several £700 on my shelf, or do I want to take the family on holiday, or pay a bill or whatever else? It's a sad reality, but it's unfortunately where I am.
Oh yeah, I think it's somewhere we've always been. I think both Ted and I have had phone collections in the past and had to give up prized models at some stage for whatever reason, or even just saving space. Ted, do you want one of those Mr. things, the emulators that can play every game?
I've never really got into emulators. I wouldn't know where to start, to be honest. I'd need to be coached and trained. But what I was going to ask you, Daniel, was whether everything you've got is on a that's my silly phone. Go away. All of the stuff you've got, is it always on cartridge, or do you also get digital downloads, or are you very much against those?
I'm not against those because they're important for the indie scene, and that's my favourite new games outside of first-party Nintendo games. But I will always try and get cartridge if I can over digital, and it'll annoy me if to the point where and I've definitely pushed that onto my kids as well. My son's a Lego addict, and he wanted Lego. I think it's called 2K Drive, which is the Lego driving game, and it was £10 download or £40 on cartridge, and he was like, "Oh, what do I do?" And I'm like, "I'll pay the remainder. It's fine, just so you can have it on cartridge." Right. So if I can, it's cartridge, but obviously with indie, you get a lot of download only.
But then you get to the point where you're buying a game off the shelf and it actually only has a download code in it for the store. Wasn't the Switch doing that for a while?
Yeah, I've got one game like that, and I didn't realise until it came in. It was a mistake purchase off Amazon. It was Hot Shot Racing. So in my mind, though, on my shelf of nearly 200 or maybe over 200 Switch games, physical Switch games, one of them is an imposter, and it's that Hot Shot Racing with a code inside. Yeah,
terrific.
I didn't realise because there is a physical version of that, and I'm like, oh man, what did I do?
So your videos are meticulously researched, I have to say. You've done some really good work whenever it comes to things. There was a thing we discussed a few weeks ago about the Brad Pitt scam, and Ted and I had just read the news the day before, recorded our podcast, and later that afternoon I went onto Twitter and found that you had posted a video with the real story behind it, and we were completely wrong, and the media were completely wrong about everything. So, what's your research method? What do you sit down and how do you work these things out? Are you just lucky?
It's hard because with that one in particular, I went down a completely different route of searching for anything I could find. Obviously you got the obvious places. You go to Reddits, and obviously you have to back up everything you're trying to find because that's obviously very opinion based. Or X used to be incredible. It still is to a degree, but being able to find, even for marketing your own content, but also searching for information, using the hashtags, which I know Elon's very anti, but using those were incredible ways of finding people that are talking about a particular topic that may send you down a certain path. With the kick scammer side of things, I tend to go to, like I say, Reddits and my own Discord and social media sites, and then hopefully they'll link you to news sites, whether they're different news sites from around the world. You obviously have to use a VPN to get to those. They seem to be the angles that I go down for those. Any kind of news sites I can find, or blogs. Sorry. But with gaming, I mean, it's all over the place. I've got every single Retro Gamer magazine, which is always a good place to find interviews on specific people. There's a website called Shmupulations, which is fantastic for translating Japanese interviews. Really, really good one, and they've got 500 plus interviews. I think it is. You go there and you type something like Mega Man, and like, wow, look, here's loads of interviews based on the Mega Man franchise. You've got the Internet Archive, which is great for searching through old magazines. I know there's a couple of times, one in particular I remember with Toe Jam and L, it was really hard to find good interviews with the main guy, but I was able to find them through really old magazines that were coming out at the time. I mean, there's loads of little places like that, and Google Translation is so much better these days to at least get a good grip on a lot of the Japanese ones that haven't been translated yet as well.
What was it that made you start doing the Kickstarter ones? Was there a particularly big case or something, or did you get scammed yourself on Kickstarter?
I mean, yeah, my first ever Kickstarter was one. I got a credit card out for it, actually. I was obsessed with the creator of Ren and Stimpy, John Kay, as a kid. Like, absolutely adored Ren and Stimpy. Oh, yeah. And he did a Kickstarter for, I think it was like $40, but I just left the job and moved into a new job. This is many years before I started YouTube. And I was like, I don't have money, but I need money right now to put 40 quid down and get a hand-drawn picture from his scrapbook. And I'm like, that sounds incredible. So I did that, and then the whole thing, it wasn't a scam because he eventually delivered on it, but it was horrendously run. And also in between that time, it turned out that John Kay from Ren and Stimpy was actually a horrible person in real life. The sort of person that was very much attracted to the younger audience in the wrong possible way, right. Which is horrible, and you don't want to hear that about your heroes. I don't know if he's a hero as such, but I definitely looked up to him. So I did a whole video on that. That was one of my first experiences with Kickstarter. But the way I got into it was, in fact, I actually did a positive Kickstarter video to begin with. You know, I'm thinking of new ideas for videos, and I did one. Here's 10 games that you wish you were going to be able to play, but you won't because they didn't hit target. So like these incredible looking games created by like people that works in old games. I remember one of them was a new game, like from the people that made Eternal Darkness on the GameCube, and I can't remember. Like I remember one of them. They were literally £1, dollar, euro, whatever it was, away from hitting target, but because they didn't hit it, they didn't take the money. So it was like this really interesting story, and people really grew to it. And I'm like, I'll do another Kickstarter video, and then eventually it started working in towards. Well, very quickly it worked towards me trying to find the scammers, and it just evolved from there, really.
Terrific, yeah. You mentioned recently in one of your videos that you got scammed by some dude putting together a podcast and asking you to come on their podcast.
Yeah, well, almost got scammed. Yeah. It was one of those things. I remember, and I won't say the YouTubers that I was talking to, but they're big names. And I was like, can you work this out? Why is this person asking me they want me to be on a podcast with them? Firstly, that was weird because I had no connection with this YouTuber at all. Mm-hmm. Normally it's like another retro gamer or a podcast like yourself or whatever it may be that's got some kind of link to what I do. And normally when they talk to you on Twitter or X even, it's really easy because you can look and you can actually see that you've got friends in common, even though you may not be connected yourself. This guy, there was none of that. I'm like, what's going on? And then he was offering to pay me, and I'm like, this is really bizarre, and a decent amount of money as well. Oh. Like I think it was like $1,000 maybe. Uh-huh. And yeah, the whole time I was going through, and I was talking to these other YouTubers, and they're like, I think it's real. I think it's just some YouTuber that's got more money than sense. And it was like, I can't work this out. I in the back of my mind, I knew it was a scam, but I couldn't work out how or why it was a scam. And eventually, yeah, it was a scam. And Windows Defender saved my ass.
What was going to be in it for them though? To get your bank details, I suppose.
We worked out, and it was quite an early on thing with the scam, is because when they what happened is eventually they, convinced that, okay, let's get on a call together and we'll discuss how we're going to do this. They were linked to another channel, this huge channel, and that was actually the channel that was linked on the YouTube channel as well. So they went back and forth. They linked to each other. I was like, this has got to be legit. Eventually, they sent a link to a Teams type website, to record the podcast, and it actually had a picture above which showed, them waiting on the call. But what actually happened was it sent me to a fake version of this other company's website, Team. I can't remember what it was, like Bell Up or something like that. And it was a fake version of that website, and when you clicked it, it automatically downloaded something onto your website. Now, we had that checked at the time, and even then we were still like, is this real, is it not? Because there was no anti-software programs we were using that were showing that this was a scam, or that this was an antivirus, a virus-filled program.
Right.
I couldn't install it anyway because Windows Defender instantly deleted it. It was the only one that said no to it.
Mm-hmm.
And then the next morning when we looked, we discovered that this was something that we're going to go into your computer, and it was essentially going to be a keylogger.
Oh, okay.
That would have got in via that.
Right.
But literally the night before, all the antivirus programs were not picking it up, and then the next morning they were. And it was like, whoa. So I must have been very early on in the scam's life. And what was crazy about that is I've had, was it 2 or 3? I've had a few people come to me and say, wow, this has been going on with me. Thanks. Like, yeah, this exact same conversation was happening to me. In fact, one of the best ones was when someone messaged me and goes, yep, I got the exact same message, and when they said, hey, do you want to jump on this call, I went and checked their website, their YouTube channel one more time, and they were live at that point in time. And they were like, well, how are we going to jump on a call if you're live? And then they shut up after that. And I'm like, bloody hell. It's really impressive. It's a very, very cleverly well done scam tactic.
It is, and you got a good amount of content out of it as well, so it was well done on them.
Yeah, exactly.
And then Muggins here comes along a couple of weeks later and says, do you want to record a podcast? And I'm trying to work out.
You know what? I've had so many people, because I said in that live video that I have my DMs open. You are the fourth person, I think, that's messaged and said, wow, your DMs are open. Just so you know, I'm not a scammer, but I'm up for an interview. Yeah, I mean, hey, I love doing these things.
I was trying to work out if I had to send you some of my blood or something to verify that it was a real person after what happened. But yeah, that was a cracker of a video, I have to say, and it was a real rabbit hole to go down to, and a mystery to unwind, which is a lot like a lot of your other Kickstarter ones, because they are fascinating that you managed to dig in and find just so many. It makes you realise just how many Kickstarter things are out there, Indiegogos and stuff like that, to get people up and running. Ted and I frequently talk about them with new exciting bits of hardware that are coming along, or modular computers or modular telephones that are being set up for a Kickstarter, and then they just go nowhere because they can't quite get it. But you did one recently about the Amico, which was
the Amico, yes,
which is a wee gaming system that looks quite interesting. Now that really, I think that's one of your biggest videos recently, isn't it?
It's my biggest video ever.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, we're close to 2 million views on that, and I don't think any of my other videos have 1 million yet. So it's done very, very well. Mate, again, like the John Kay thing. Like, I've always been interested in gaming, fascinated with gaming. Even as a young age, I would get my Sega magazine, and they would actually have interviews with Tommy Tallarico. That's the guy behind the Amico, or the guy that not behind the Amico. Yeah, it was behind the Amico, not behind Intellivision. He just bought into the company to make this new console. And again, he was someone that I looked up to. I knew of his name before I knew of Shigeru Miyamoto, before of Mario and Donkey Kong fame, before I knew of Yu Suzuki of like Outrun and Afterburner fame. I knew of Tommy Tallarico, this sort of like rock sort of persona guy that worked on like the Aladdin soundtrack, and Earthworm Jim is one of my favourite games as a youngster. Global Gladiators, I used to love playing that, and I always just think the music was really, really cool. It had a sort of like a party hip hop vibe to it, and he turned out to be lying through his back teeth as well. I got speaking to him, we got quite chummy, but I realised as time went on all those people that were warning me about the system were 100% right, and it was really sad because this was someone that I looked up to as a youngster. Never had the ability to work with or anything like that. He did comment on a few of the videos when I talked about like Earthworm Jim and MDK and stuff like that. But then when I got to speak to him, he was using me, and it was really, really sad. He was using my audience to be able to boost his console, which is fine. You know, I mean, everyone does that to a degree when they're trying to release a product. But what's not okay is when he's lying about his product to your audience. And then essentially he's no longer scamming you, he's scamming your entire audience. It was time. It got to a point where I'm like, right, let's do this video and go through the whole thing and, you know, take him down. And that's what happened. He's gone into hiding ever since.
And that video weighs in at almost 4 hours, which is incredible.
Yeah, I think it's literally a couple of seconds away from 4 hours. Yeah,
that's unbelievable. and people always say
I had no idea it was going to take that long or be that long, and I missed out a fair bit as well. So I mean, I could do a director's cut one day potentially. I don't know.
Wow.
But I'm working on one now that's very similar. It's not going to be 4 hours. It might not even be 2 hours. It might be. It's really hard to work out how long those videos are going to be because they're done in a timeline fashion. For people that haven't seen it, it zooms out of a television, so it's like a telly in the middle of the screen, and above it there's a time. So like this happened on this date, and it just keeps going through. So I don't have to say on the 3rd of September, on the 2nd of September, on the 3rd of September. It's all written up there, so I can just keep telling the story.
Yeah.
And I'm doing that again. And when you look at the scripts, there's a lot of gaps where I've just got the date to make sure I put the date in. So it's very hard for me to look at a script that's like 40 pages long, which this one is, and go, oh, that's going to be an hour long. Wow. Because there's so many gaps. It may be longer, it may be less. It depends. But yeah, I'm working on one which is essentially the same type of thing, but with a guy from Spain who's scamming everyone as well with a system called the Super Sega, which is an FPGA powered Sega system that plays everything from the SG-1000 and Master System days all the way up to the Dreamcast, and the whole thing's fake and the whole thing's a scam. And I'm doing a big 2-hour video to bring him down.
I quite like that. That looked quite interesting. Oh, flipping it.
Yeah. Yeah.
But it only goes to show that, you know, where obviously I've tried to be a YouTuber in the past, you get all this this advice from people saying, you know, keep your videos short and concise and to the point, whereas it's not. It's just make them really interesting and people will keep coming back. I mean, your longest video is your most watched video. That's incredible.
Yeah. I don't know what the retention is now, but I know the retention, as in the average amount of time someone has watched that one video without stopping and deciding they want to watch something else. At one point, it was an hour. I think it's probably down to about 45 minutes or so now. But that's, I mean, someone's sitting down and watching one of your videos for like 45 minutes on average. I mean, I'm super proud of that, big time. But it did also take 4 months to make that video. So,
and also it's not the most in your face newsworthy topic either. It's quite obscure, the Intellivision Amigo.
Yeah. It's there was another channel called H Bomber Guy, which I'm not even going to pretend didn't bring some traffic to that video. He's a huge YouTuber, and he looked at Tommy Tallarico as a person, and I looked at the Amico as a system, which obviously related to Tommy Tallarico. So they work quite well towards with each other. Obviously, he is significantly bigger than I am, but I'd like to think we sent a little bit of traffic each way. In relation to our actual, subscriber size.
After watching a 4-hour video of it, you think that people are going to go, I need a little bit more of this. No, we're going to go nuts.
Honestly, you put them together. His one's 2 hours. So together, if you really want to know everything about Tommy Tallarico, there's 6 hours. And that is just, I mean, it's crazy to say this. That's still only part way down the rabbit hole. It really is.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. So you, how did you come to become a YouTuber? What did you do before this, DJ Slips?
Anything and everything. I've always been in work. Never been out of work longer than a month or so. Ever since I left school, I lived at a pub for a couple of years when I was like late teens. So I worked there, and I did a bit of DJing there as well. I worked at like shops. I've worked in factories. I've worked at 2 diamond factories, not beautiful diamonds, diamond grit. Okay. I've worked in apple farms. I've worked in retail, but yeah, I've worked in all these different jobs. But the younger I was, the less I was about my work. I lived for the weekend, you know. Yeah. But as you know, time gets on and you grow up, as they say. You know, I got more into like proper sales and more so marketing, and towards the last 4 years before I became a YouTuber, like full time. YouTubing was what I did in the evenings as a hobby, and marketing was what I did in the daytime, and it did kind of work together a little bit. You know, like I'd have to work out how to promote the company. And I'm like, oh, I could use that tactic to you know, promote myself on this particular social media site, or you know, that sort of thing. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was it really. Yeah.
All right, and then the rest is history. So this is your full-time job then, the YouTube?
100%. Yeah, it's been my full-time job for 7 or so years, something like that.
Wow, that's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I love it. It's genuinely dream job. I know, like it becomes a bit formulaic when you're like, thank you so much to all you people that are watching. I can't believe I do this, blah blah blah. But it is actually the truth. You know, like the fact that I get to do this for a living,
yeah,
you know, I do something that I'm absolutely fascinated with, and I'm hoping that I leave, you know, these big in-depth videos about these particular topics to the world even after I'm gone. I mean, is YouTube going to be around then? I don't know, but like, it's an exciting, cool thing to be able to say you've done and you've been a part of, and you get to speak to other people, and you know, I get messages sometimes. Not too often, several times a year maybe, when someone says, oh, you're helping me through like a tough time and your videos have helped. I'm like, that's insane. That's like the most rewarding thing ever, like genuinely. And also I work from home, so I get to go to every kind of school outing, and I don't get to miss out on anything. I get to pick up the kids from school and, you know, work around my own hours. Like, it's genuinely an absolute dream job. Brilliant. And it has its ups and downs like all jobs, but on the most part, it's the best.
So at the moment, you're sitting on, I think it's 508 or 99 videos. The next one is your big 600th.
Oh wow! Okay, I didn't even notice that.
Oh right, you've got to quickly put together a special then.
Yeah, well, that'll be the big Super Sega video next. That'll be my 600 video.
Brilliant.
Hopefully, yeah, I think that's right. Yeah.
Okay. Do you have any particular favourites or ones that you're genuinely proud of?
Yeah, and it's not always the ones that do the best views. I mean, the Amico is definitely my favourite, just because it took so long, and then the end result was just so good for exactly what I wanted it to be. But you know, videos that don't do as well sometimes, I'm like really proud that I was able to get the whole story out there. Like, for instance, The Evil Dead is one of my favourite like horror movie franchises.
Nice one.
That video completely tanked, but I was just so happy with what I did. You watched that, did you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I really liked that video, and I even got to. And there was one game in the. Well, for people out there that don't know, I also do a history in the games series. It's a lot. I don't do as many, but I'll look into how a particular movie, TV show, comic franchise, whatever it is, came to be, and then I talk about all of the games related to it as well. It's the history and the games, and I did The Evil Dead. And when I got to the game section, there was one game that I'm just no good at playing, which is the newer version of The Evil Dead. It's like kind of a third-person cooperative shooter game, and I'm just not very good at those games. So I actually reached out to, oh my god, I can't think of his name, Ash Williams, the Bruce Campbell's son. The main guy from Evil Dead. I reached out to his son, and he actually narrated that part, so it was really, really cool. And he said that his dad's seen it, so I'm like, bloody hell, how cool is that? Like, that for me was a truly incredible moment. I mean, there's like War of the Worlds was one that I was really, really proud of. I thought that was really good. My later Streets of Rage, I've done that video twice. The second one I did was really, really cool. I've actually had that video in particular actually was really cool. I had people that worked on Streets of Rage 4 say that the whole team got together and watched my video in preparation for Streets of Rage 4, and I'm like, my god, like, what a dream come true, you know. The same thing happened with Double Dragon. The guy who worked on Double Dragon got his team to watch my history on Double Dragon to make sure they're up to scratch on it. I got invited by Sega to go up and stream the latest Choo Choo Rocket, and the team were there, and they were like, wow. And I was there, like, getting excited to meet them, and they were getting excited to meet me because they've watched my videos. And they're like, wow, thank you so much. We actually used your video in the pitch to work on the next Choo Choo Rocket. And I'm like, wow! Like, it's so cool. Truly, like, so good. You know, they come around once every couple of years when something like that happens, but yeah, fully worthwhile.
And you're not afraid of certain topics as well. Like, I'm just looking here, and there's 5 rude games for Nintendo Switch made for.
Yeah, I think the second one got demonetized, sadly, but yeah.
Oh, right, okay.
yeah. I mean, I try and blur out or cut out anything where I say anything too negative or naughty, but yeah, that was a bit of a. I thought it'd be a funny video to make rude games on the Nintendo Switch, because there are quite a few.
Yeah, Cluster's last time was Atari, wasn't it? But
yeah,
on the Nintendo platform, blood and boobies, bad.
Well. Yes. I used to have a partnership with PlayAsia. And they would just send me all of this like free credit to use on their website once a month.
Oh,
this is before the pandemic. And I used to buy all of these weird Japanese games that some of them I didn't even know really truly what they were, but they looked funny or whatever to like stream. And one of them was a pinball game where the girls turn into these giant women and they sort of like faint at the top of the pinball table, and then you're bouncing these balls. Which I think are also curled up girls. I don't know. I can't remember. And then you're bouncing them against their breasts.
Sounds quality.
And it's just like boing, boing. It's ridiculous. There's that one. I mean, there's loads of games. There's a game called. It's called. What is it? Panty Party. It's not rude, really, but you actually play as a pair of knickers, and you fly around and shoot other pairs of knickers. All the girls at the school have been turned into knickers or panties, and you have to shoot them, kill all of the panties that have turned you into panties. Otherwise, you're going to stay as a pair of panties forever. It's so stupid and so hilarious, but it's amazing.
All right, okay. Well, one for all the family to gather around and play.
That one, I don't think's actually got even an age rating on it, because you're like, wow, this is going to be rude, but like, I think it's actually like literally made for everyone. You know, it's probably as rude as, you know, Captain Underpants or something that, you know, the kids read, but it's just funny.
That's probably still qualifies as fashion, doesn't it? Because you can do anything with fashion on YouTube. So, what do you watch on YouTube, or where do you draw your inspiration from on YouTube?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think most people in the retro space create different types of content, even though we're all in the same arena. I think, you know, it's very a Kim Justice video is very obviously a Kim Justice video, and Lazy Game Reviews and whoever else. So I take inspiration more so in the way that my videos are edited and the story, the way I tell the story nowadays from channels outside of retro gaming. You know, whether that be like I say, I'm into theme parks and the history of theme parks as well. So like the way Defunctland tells the story of a particular ride or attraction or whatever it may be, I try and bring that into my videos. But at the same time, I already mentioned Kim Justice. She talks about topics that I quite often I had no idea was a thing. You know, like, and that's what I always crave in the retro space. Without blowing my own trumpet, you know, I do this for a living. I know a lot about retro gaming, but there are, and most YouTubers talk about the same thing over and over. But there are some channels out there, like I say, Kim Justice is one of them, that will talk about topics that I had no idea about, and I just find that absolutely fascinating.
Yeah, and again, her videos can go on for a long time as well, which. And they continually get hits, so it's not down to just short, snappy, to the point. It's people do enjoy sitting down and watching a documentary for an evening about something they love so much.
Yeah. I think Kim's are a great videos to put on sometimes whilst I'm, you know, editing up thumbnails or something like that. And what was that? And you can sort of half watch and half listen to. I love Kim to bits. I think she's awesome. And you know, there's other YouTubers as well, but primarily the stuff that I'm like just watching for fun isn't necessarily in the retro gaming space. I'm quite a big fan of vlogs. Unfortunately, my timeline is full of Fortnite and Minecraft videos when the kids get hold of my account and watch it on the telly downstairs.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, okay.
All different types.
Ted, what do you think? Anything you want to add?
I was just reflecting on YouTube use really, and thinking to myself that I just don't really, in any real sense, have a television now, and everything I consume is either via my Plex and computer, streaming from there, or it's YouTube. And I just sit there in the evening, and my first instinct is not. In fact, my television screen hasn't even got a terrestrial aerial plugged in anymore. It's just a streamer, and I just use YouTube for my television. But having said that, what I was going to come round to saying was that I'm also aware that I'm probably not very exploratory in that. I kind of watch the things I know about mostly, and I think from what you're saying, that would encourage me, I think, to kind of step out a bit and try and find some different things that would stretch my interest, and not just kind of focusing always on what I know.
It's a tough one, because how do you watch something you don't know about and click on something that you don't know about? You don't know if that's going to be interesting to you or not. And
no, but now I've spoken to you today, that's opened up an avenue which I never knew was there, and now I should have another thing to look at.
Yeah, it's sadly why a lot of channels won't blow up to the big numbers, because they talk about things that people don't expect to be interesting.
Yeah.
Some people just have the gift of the gab in both worlds. Perfect example is Lazy Game Reviews, that did, I talk about this quite a lot, but one of the early videos that really inspired me just before I started YouTube is he did a history of calculators, and I'm like, my God, who is going to watch that? I watched it and I was like, my God, that is fascinating. That is so good.
Yeah.
Hasn't made me want to start collecting calculators or anything, but like I was so fascinated by it.
Mm-hmm.
So fascinated by it. But to be able to actually get people to want to watch that sort of thing, you have to already be quite established. No one's going to be clicking on a channel that's got less than 50 subscribers that talks about calculators.
Or you're you're hoping that YouTube is smart enough to start suggesting stuff to you.
Yeah, but at the same time, YouTube is only going to suggest videos. I mean, there are the odd time when you just do get lucky, but YouTube's really only going to suggest videos if people are clicking on them in the first place. Right. It's I don't know if it's still relevant, but the rule that you've got to try and live by as a YouTuber is 222. You've got 2 hours to get as many views on your video as humanly possible. That's why you've got all your social media links ready to go out as soon as you go live with the video. You've got those set the exact right time when you release a video, like when most of your people watchers online to watch your content. For me, it's around 6 or 7 o'clock on a Saturday. So you've got 2 hours to get them to watch as much as you can. You do well in those 2 hours, YouTube will promote you, that much. Mm-hmm. Second in that, you've got 2 days. You're still in there, not quite as good, but you've still got those 2 days to do as good as you can. Maybe send it out to news sites, whatever it is, which is what I did with the Brad Pitt story, because I thought that was a bit more other news sites that actually be interested in that. Yeah. And then you got 2 weeks. After those, sometimes you get lucky. Sometimes it happens. I know I believe it's a different story when it comes to shorts. I know a lot of people do really well like 2 or 3 weeks later, which is bizarre, absolutely bizarre. But yeah, you got 222. There you go. There's my little tip for YouTubers out there. Get your stuff to as many people as you can within the first 2 hours of a video going live.
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible. It's really difficult to get a bit of an inside view into YouTube as well, because I think the YouTubers tend to keep their strategies toward YouTube close to their hearts. It's
really sad. It really is. There's a lot of people. I'm like, I love being in groups of people. I'm like, okay, what do you guys think of this? What do you think of this? And YouTube's got better in giving you the tools that you can that they can give you suggestions on things, but it's tough. I mean, if I open up my YouTube studio right now, I mean, the suggestions it's going to give me for a video are so generic. It's like, people are looking up this. Why don't you do a video on the history of video games? I'm like, okay, yeah, thanks. But they do. The other tools are a lot better. Like you can put up free thumbnails now when you upload a video, and after, I can't remember the exact time, but say after X amount of time, it will say, okay, more people have clicked on this one than these two, like 42%, this is the one they're going to go for, and they'll automatically change it to that. So little things like that are really good. There are third-party services that you can sign up to that will help you with tags and things like that, and give you a checklist of things to make sure you've done before you go live. Pinned a comment, put 7 to 9 hashtags in the description. They're more important now than the actual hashtag section, tag section. Which is ridiculous, but it's true apparently. And YouTube's always changing, and it's nice to be in a group of people that will give advice to each other. But sadly, most people are like, "Well, I'm not telling you," as if like your channel is going to take away from their channel.
Yeah.
Like, it's not the way to think. The best way to think about this is the fact that if you do a channel that's very similar to them, all you're going to do is just cross promote each other, as opposed to take views away from someone else.
Yeah. All right. Well, look, I don't want to take up the rest of your day. You've got things you need to get on to do. So, where can people find you, Daniel?
Go to any of those, search engine sites, whether that be YouTube, Google, and just search for Slopes Game Room. You will find me, and hopefully you like the content. And if you do, here comes that thing that we all say: make sure you leave a comment, subscribe, hit the like button. But you can go find me on all of those, and hopefully you like it.
That's always something that gets me. I'm sitting with every video. It's like, do people not know by now that you can subscribe and like a video?
Oh, I know. I hate saying it because it's so generic. It's so generic, and I hate watching like younger content creators that create content for like younger generation, like Fortnite videos and stuff, because I see it. My kids watch it. And it's just disgusting when you're watching. If you leave that like button, one of you will win. No one's going to win, Toby. No one's going to win, mate. Seriously. And it's just so disgusting. However, the best YouTubers out there, maybe this is me talking from my marketing background, like, do know to do little tests on their own channel. I did a couple of videos where I think I realised I hadn't actually asked anyone to subscribe for the last several videos. The next one I did, and I just got a big influx of subscribers. I'm like, it pains me to say it, but saying hit that subscribe button, now it lights up when you say it as well, which is quite funny. Hit that subscribe button, like button, comments. It actually does help. It's insane that you have to ask someone to do it.
Yeah.
But it works.
Wow. Right, okay. Well, we do put this podcast out on YouTube, so hit that subscribe button and hit the like button.
Yeah, do it. Do it. And leave a comment. All of those things tell YouTube that more people want to see this stuff.
Yeah. Right. Okay. Well,
it's true.
That's awesome stuff. Thank you very much for coming on, Daniel, and I wish you all the best with your 600th video. I know.
Oh, I'm really happy. I didn't know it was 600, and it's going to be a big epic one, so I really appreciate it.
Awesome. All right. Well, look, take care, and don't be a stranger to the show. Hopefully, we'll be able to get you on in a few years' time and see how you're doing and all that kind of stuff. And other than that, Ted, unless you've got something you want to add?
No, I'm done, thank you. We'll be back next week with something probably not as exciting, but something a bit different.
Good old
Definitely be more exciting. Don't listen to him.
So if you want to get in touch with us, you can by emailing us at gareth@techaddicts.uk. We're also on Twitter at techaddictsuk. I'm on Twitter too at Gareth Miles. I also have Mastodon and Blue Sky, which there are links in the show notes for those things. I also have my GarethMiles.com if you want to find out more there. Ted, where can they find you?
TedSalmon.com or in MeWe. That's where I am. TedSalmon.com has got links to all the MeWe groups for joining up, and also the other audio podcasts that we're involved in. So head across there, and if you want to buy me a copy, you can do that. It's at paypal.me/Ted Salmon. Cheers.
And we'll catch you next week. Take care now.
Bye.
Have a good one, guys.